With the supply or die event in full swing in Star Citizen, in this video I'm going to show you the best way to do this event and make shiploads of money in the process. Unlike Save Stand Chapter 2, you can do this event in either Stand or Pyro, but for this strat, you gotta do it in Stanton. And if you stick around, I will show you how to do the 13 mil large resupply mission without having to own a cargo ship. So stay tuned for that. So for this event, this is mostly a cargo hauling event. You are shipping a variety of resources to certain destinations for big payouts. There's the resources, which are copper, corundum, RMC, construction materials or CMATs, tin, and pressurized ice. And then there's the high-risk resource called Detratine, which you can only get from Xenothread depots in Pyro. Now the way CIG wants you to do this event is to buy, salvage, or mine for these resources. But I know of a way where you don't have to do any of that and still make literal shiploads of money. As you can see, the highest paying contract is the large resupply of tin and pressurized ice. The problem is that there's only one way to get tin, and that's why I buy it through Magnus Gateway. You can also mine tin and ice in Pyro, but that shit takes time and money to refine before you can ship it out. What we're going to be focusing on is copper and corundum. These could also be mined, but again, they have to be refined, which costs time and money, and we want them now. I actually made a video about this last year, but it was about getting Quantanium, and since then there's been some changes. If you don't know already, I'm talking about doing bounties, and you can actually get these minerals as soon as you unlock LRT bounties, because that's when they start spawning nomads and rafts, which carries cargo, and when they're carrying cargo, they're almost guaranteed to be carrying copper and corundum. But it's not until HRT bounties where cargo ships become more frequent, and it's not until VHRT bounties where the big cargo ships like the Starfarers and Hercules ships shows up. At that point, every bounty is basically guaranteed to have cargo in them. In my Quantanium video, I used hoverbikes to deal with these big cargo ships. That strategy is a lot less viable now. But enough about hoverbikes. The ship to use for this strat is the Constellation Taurus. Now you can also use the Andromeda or Corsair, but the reason I recommend the Taurus is because it has a larger cargo capacity that allows you to do medium resource missions worth 3 million AREC each, and it has its own tractor beam. I should also mention it's cheaper than the Andromeda. You can rent the Taurus at New Babbage starting at 168k. Alternatively, you can buy it from New Deal for about 8 mil. To do this, you need to do bounties at the Yellow Asteroid Belt. It's the best place to do this because you don't have to worry about gravity. When fighting these bounties, you want to make sure you don't destroy the ship, otherwise you lose a good chunk of the cargo inside. So you have to be careful by burst firing as soon as its shields are depleted and the main body of the ship turns red. Or what I've done is create a new weapon group and assign 1 or 2 guns to it. That way I get more leeway when the ship goes into soft death while I'm shooting at it. I try to attack these ships one at a time. It depends on how spread out they are. If they're spread out, it's very easy to aggro them one at a time than if they're clustered closer together. A rule of thumb I have is that the hostiles typically don't aggro you until you're about 10 kilometers away from them. It's not a guarantee, but that's what I usually observe. Conveniently, the Taurus's missiles, the Strike Force 2s, have a lock-on range of 10 kilometers, so you can use that to gauge distance. On the flip side, they don't work most of the time. But yeah, the idea is to pick off the cargo ships one at a time. Lure them to a spot not only to pull them away from their friends, but also to make looting cargo from multiple ships easier. As you can see, the VHRT bounties have a fuck ton of cargo. This bounty contained 2 Starfarers and a Hercules. The first Starfarer had 25 SU of copper and 10 SU of corundum. The Hercules had 89 SU of corundum, but only 12 SUs of copper. So already I have enough corundum for the medium resupply mission, and the second Starfarer had 55 SUs of copper and 28 SUs of corundum. Adding it all up, I got 92 SUs of copper and 127 SUs of corundum from those 3 ships. Unfortunately, I was 2 SUs short of completing the medium resupply, so I had to buy the remainder. You can technically do VHRT bounties planet side. You just have to make sure you soft death them close to the ground so they don't blow up on impact. In terms of time investment, I wouldn't pursue bounties unless I had a Hercules, Karak, Caterpillar, or Reclaimer, because one of those ships alone can clear one or both of those resources for the medium resupply missions. Maybe if there were 2 Starfarers I might consider pursuing it, but 1 is certainly not enough. For example, this Corsair has 9 corundum and 1 copper. This Freelancer only had 2 copper and 1 corundum, and this one had 7 copper and 5 corundum, and this 600i has 6 corundum and 2 copper. You get the point, it's a lot more work with these bounties. But big ships aren't always a guarantee. This Carrack only had 25 corundum and 10 copper. The Hercules certainly has a lot of big containers, so you might have to make multiple trips between the bounty area and Pyro Gateway to finish the mission. Pro tip, if you do that, make sure you touch the ship you're looting with your tractor beam. That way it won't despawn when you leave the area. The Taurus can hold 3 32 SU boxes, even though its cargo grid doesn't support it, so you only have to make 2 trips. Once you've done the mission, not only do you get paid 3 mil, but you also get 300 points towards your event progress. Now I mentioned that you could do the large resupply missions without having to own a cargo ship, and here's how. I have to bring up hoverbikes again. I said they're less viable, but it's still good for boarding ships. To do that, you need a Nox, which you can buy from Astro Armada, and a ship that can hold it. You might be able to do this with the Dragonfly too, but I think it might be too big. And the Mirai Pulse is bugged. The laser turret is completely useless. For the Nox, instead of using laser repeaters, equip these sledge mass drivers. They go right through shields and are great for damaging doors. Then grab a bounty in the yellow asteroid belt. If the bounty doesn't have a Hercules in it, abandon it. Otherwise, it's go time. You can tell what type of Hercules it is based on its paint color. If it's white, it's a C2. If it's gray, it's an M2. The whole objective is to open the back of the Hercules with your sledge drivers, enter the ship with your Nox, and hijack it. That's easier said than done though, and it's gonna require practice. But once you're in, turn off the Nox's engine and get out, not just so you don't glitch in the ship, but also so the Nox doesn't blow up and kill you. Run to the cockpit as quickly as possible, kill the pilot, and commandeer the ship. You can either fly away or stay and fight. And if there's any more ships that have juicy loot in them, well, now you have a big ship to fight with. Now you can do this if you have a bunch of resources already banked in Grimhex or Seraphim and you want to send it out all at once for the big 13 mil payday. Or deposit those resources you pillage into the hangar freight elevators and send it all out later. But the best option is to go directly to Pyro Gateway. I mean, you're gonna go there anyway, might as well store all your shit there. Well, technically stolen shit, but it's yours now. However, there is one very important thing I have to mention. Do not complete or abandon the bounty before you've done whatever you need to do with the stolen Hercules. Otherwise, the ship will disappear along with all of the cargo inside if you quantum travel a certain distance, something I learned the hard way. At first I thought it was a random glitch, but no, it happens consistently. If you do complete or abandon the bounty before you get to Pyro Gateway, well, the ship's cooked. The best you can do is QT to Grimhex and unload and store all the cargo there, assuming you're around yellow. Now the weird thing is, and this is probably a bug, if you kill the pilot of the bounty target, you won't complete the bounty. This was not the case in earlier patches, so if you see a Hercules that's a bounty target and has a lot of juicy copper or corundum inside, don't worry, you can still hijack it and take it to Pyro Gateway. You'll bug the bounty, but the resources are all that matters. For large resupplies, I tend to ignore boxes smaller than 8 SU, because at most you're only going to miss out on 7 SUs of copper or corundum, and moving them takes up to 3 times the effort compared to moving one 8 SU box. And these ships can carry hundreds of these resources. Another pro tip, you can see how much resources you banked in the commodity kiosk at the admin office. I also recommend disposing of the pilot's body before going to Pyro Gateway, so you don't get shot at by the space station turrets. Once you have at least 334 SU each of copper and corundum banked in Pyro Gateway, in your large hangar, bring up at least 334 SU of each of those resources. Then accept a large resupply mission and send down the freight elevator. And voila! You've instantly completed the large resupply mission and became 13 million AWEC richer. And all this without owning or even renting a cargo ship for large resupplies. Considering how pricey the C2 Hercules is, this might be a viable strategy once you get good at boarding ships. And not only does doing the large resupply missions get you a big payday that can be used towards purchasing your own Hercules, they'll also grant you 534 points. If you only care about points though, you can get a big load of copper and corundum into your borrowed Hercules, sit in Pyro Gateway, and easily clear 14 small resupply missions which give 200 points each. If you guys don't know already, there are 3 tiers of rewards. The first tier at 800 points is a piece of decoration for your hangar. At 1800 is the Outcast Ravager 212 shotgun, and at 2800 is the Outcast paint pack for the Mist Fortune and Prospector and Drake Vulture. But even if you don't care about the rewards, you should still do the event cause it's a lot of money. So I've shown 2 strats for the supply or die event. One way I would consider is the safer, more stable option, and the other is more high risk, high reward. It does make more money and is potentially faster, especially once you get the hang of boarding Hercules ships with hover bikes, like I did. As for which one is the best, well, that's up to you. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. And if you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe and ring that bell. Right now I'm currently grinding this event, earning all that dough and trying to earn enough points to get those exclusive rewards. I believe the event is supposed to end when 4.1 comes out, which I think is happening pretty soon. If I somehow find a better strat for this supply or die event, well, actually I don't know if I'll have enough time to make a video about it, but I'll probably be checking out 4.1 in the PTU. In the meantime, if you want more Star Citizen content like the different factions in Pyro, or anything else, then I highly recommend you watch this video right here.